it's very strange to me that we have to sort of figure out, wait, is this real? Isn't it? And what about the people who don't do that? What about the people who just accept what they see, accept what they hear, not sure whether it's human or not, but it doesn't matter because they're getting information, it's coming into their feed, it must be okay.
So let me give you this crazy example.
Sure.
So there's a AI being called Granny Spills. Completely AI generated. She looks like a granny. She's always dressed in pink and she appears super like glamorous and talks about like big sunglasses and talks about, everything, sex and shopping and relationships. And she's super bold, right? It's fun.
Mhm.
And who was she created by? Two men. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Nina. It's just us today.
It's just us,
Very
and I'm so
exciting.
excited. I know, me
Us and
too.
AI. Okay.
Yes, well, that's the thing, us and AI, and that's what I want to talk about. Because I sent out a newsletter and you said, oh, there's something in there I want to talk about, which is sort of this dynamic of compare and despair, right? The cross section of, compare lane and, this
Despair Road. Yeah.
despair road, right? And then we were talking about that, and I said, it's getting even crazier
Mm.
because women are starting to compare themselves to AI generated women online. And then you started telling me about diet chatbots.
Yes.
So we want to talk about the influence of AI on our body.
Well, so yeah, it's not just, the fact that you can go online and, ask AI exactly how to be what size body and, follow its rigorous rules, whatever that is, as if they're sustainable. It's that you're now also depending on advice that's really not being given to you by a human. You might say, well, okay, but this is a compilation of data that other humans have put together. I mean, lest we forget to say out loud, we wouldn't even want you going to a human to get a diet because that's the whole point. But the influence right now of AI is really quite astounding. I think people forget, and I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence, I think they forget that it's artificial and it starts to be like the truth. And I should follow it because it reminds me of, my grandmother used to say, if it's in the newspaper, it must be true.
Yeah. Oof, that's definitely not so. And that perspective of there is some right answer out there. Somebody else has the answer. Just even that thought, we have to unpack because we actually were trained into that thought that somebody else knows better about our body than we do. We'll go to the doctor and they're the expert and they know, right? The AI is not going to say, well, what's your sense of what's happening? What are you feeling? What is the wisdom of your body? Do you have a history of disordered eating or an eating disorder before I tell you to reduce your calories to whatever number it's decided is optimum?
Right.
Like there's a way that when we go to something that isn't real, it negates the wisdom of our own body. Or even if we go to some doctor and go, okay, I want to lose weight. And it's happened the other way for friends of mine. They've gone to doctors and they haven't said a thing, right? I have a good friend who's a big swimmer, eats beautiful, real, whole food.
Sure.
And the first thing the doctor said is, you should lose weight. She was like, he didn't ask. Have I tried? What's my history with losing weight? Is there disordered eating? Would it be triggering for me? Do I
I hope
move
the
during
first
the
thing she
day?
said to him was, I guess we're going to part ways now.
Yes. She was like, I'm never going back to see him.
Right.
So, and I really want to bring the focus back to AI because it's sort of like giving up our power on steroids.
Let's talk about chatbots in particular, right? Because even separate from what you and I normally talk about, just the advent of chatbots is problematic.
Yes.
I imagine if you are someone who has very what you think are low social skills, if you are someone who isolates a lot, it seems interesting to be talking to it, although I think they tend to call it someone. It's not someone, it's an it. And so there's something about talking to, a quote expert on some subject. And, these conversations, I have to say, especially for younger people, let's say, you know, 10 to 16, have proven to be quite toxic and in some cases have led to suicides, but that's a separate issue. But when you're talking to a chatbot, and it's odd to say talking. You're not talking. You're interacting with data. That's what you're doing. But it feels
Mhm.
like you're having a conversation. It feels like, well, what I'm being told must be the truth, and it isn't. And it can be very damaging to say, well, the chatbot said that I could do this and I'll get that result. The chatbot is not able to really reason all of the variables with you, or is it able to ask you why you're asking the question? It's just gonna spit out data in the form of what feels like human conversation. And so that's problematic at the get-go.
Yeah. And I think that again, we need to come back to you are a human being that deserves compassion, tenderness, and to be seen as a whole human with a long history, with a culture that's constantly told you that your body should be different. And that's now showing up also. This is another place where AI is really, I'm seeing impact women, is AI influencers. So I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I
Mm,
have. I'm like looking at Instagram, I'm scrolling through, and suddenly there's this woman. She looks like she's, somewhere between 55 and 75. But like, maybe silver hair or something that sort of denotes that she is in 50s, 60s, 70s. But
okay.
then she's sort of got this extra sheen, right? And I've gotten my spidey sense is really good now. And I watch them talk and I watch them again and I watch the way the eyes move in certain patterns or their hands move. And I'm like, this is not a real person. This is AI. And so now, what does that say to us, right? Who gets to construct, right? The older woman when the older woman isn't even real.
Do
And I
you
want to
hear
give
what
you
we're
an
saying to each other? I mean, do you hear what we're saying to each other? That we live in a world now, and I know we're about to sound old as I say this, but that we live in a world now where we have to actually squint and look more carefully to see if the person we're looking at is actually real.
real.
That
Yes,
concept alone, there's something wrong with that.
there
Well,
is.
I mean, it's dishonest for one, okay?
Well, it's marketing,
Well,
right?
yes, sure, but either market with a human or not. But it's very strange to me that we have to sort of figure out, wait, is this real, isn't it? And what about the people who don't do that? What about the people who just accept what they see, accept what they hear, not sure whether it's human or not, but it doesn't matter because they're getting information, it's coming into their feed, it must be okay.
But what information are they getting, right? What they're getting is this is what older should look like. This is what an idealized version of aging looks like. So
Mhm.
let me give you this crazy example.
Sure.
So there's a AI being called Granny Spills, completely AI generated. She looks like a granny. She's always dressed in pink and she appears super like glamorous and talks about like big sunglasses and talks about, everything, sex and shopping and relationships, and she's super bold, right? It's fun.
Mhm.
And who was she created by? Two men. Right. And so it starts to really look at like who's creating this idealized version
Mhm.
or this, and I'm putting this in air quotes, this example for us to live into as though this is the right way.
Well, isn't that the credo of all advertising since time immemorial is,
Yes.
this is your goal, this is what you should buy, this is what you should want, this is the
Yes.
value system in which you should participate. I mean, that's as old as time. But
Mhm.
now, to add to that, looking at something you want to emulate and it's not real. I mean, this goes back to, let's go back to the 80s when I think, if I'm right on my timeline, airbrushing became a thing.
Yes.
Okay. And so we were all looking at magazines, which eventually became digital magazines, but we were looking at magazines and thinking, you know, that's doable. I should want to
Yeah.
look like that. And I'm going to shoot for that. Not realizing that it was not attainable, it was not real.
Mhm.
It happened a lot, and I imagine still does in bridal magazines. So these
Mhm.
poor, folks who were, looking at what do I want to wear on my very special day now had this additional pressure of, oh, but I have to look like that in it. And how can I get to look like that? Well, you can't because that's actually not possible. That's not human. That's not real. That's created.
Right.
But it speaks to a bigger question. What are we searching for? Whether it's AI, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's a conversation with a friend, whether it's some other form of communication, what are we searching for? We're searching to be different than who we are. We're searching to somehow fit in. What does that mean, to fit in?
Right. Versus a sense of belonging to self, a sense of authenticity, a sense of really being embodied and rooted. Right. And the difference energetically of those two,
Mm,
right? I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to be something. There's so much striving. There's so much hustle. Right. Versus I get to be myself and I get to define what my version
right.
of aging is, what
Right. And
my
and it's
version.
it's important to say that there are barriers to being able to be self-realized in that way. For
Yeah.
some, it's financial.
Yeah.
For some, it is, sure, not nice to want that, but I'm in a life where I just have to make sure that I can get through each day and do the things I have to do, and blah blah blah, all that, right? And there are people who suffer with some real physical illnesses that create a very different relationship with their body. It's hard to sometimes appreciate a body that isn't doing what you thought it would be doing at a certain stage of life,
Completely.
right? So there's all of that. There's grief. But I think the focus of what we're trying to talk about here is, if you're going to seek out questions and answers, and if you want to be aspirational about certain things, okay, but could you do it with a human being? Because by doing it with artificial intelligence and with a chatbot, it's again like going back to airbrushing and thinking you could look a certain way, be a certain way, not even just your look, but these personalities are created. They're not perfect beings. They're not anything. They are the figment of someone's imagination.
And not usually a woman.
Right.
But it really, I think that there's an invitation in this world because we're not stopping this world of AI. There's going to be more and more AI
Of course.
influences. There's going to be more chat bots that say, here, just plug in how much you're eating every day, and I'll tell you what to add or eliminate, blah, blah, blah. That it will exist. We are not, single-handedly going to pull back time on that. But what we can do is be savvy consumers, right? Just like it was years ago when, airbrushing, there was videos about how airbrushing happened,
Yeah.
and I would show them in classes so women could see, oh, that's not how she started out, so that we could be savvy consumers. I
Yeah.
wish I had known that when I was poring over 17 magazine and feeling like I should be that. So I think the invitation in this to navigate this world that we're in now is to go, wait, is this real? I think it is important to be the savvy consumer. Just like when I get emails, I check the email address. Is this spam or is this real? Am I watching something that's a real human or am I watching something that's an AI? Okay. If it's AI, The invitation at that moment is to go, wow, that's what the culture is projecting onto me and trying to sell me some
Mhm.
idealized image. How do I want to step into my own authenticity? And what's helpful then is to have a real human that can support us in that journey.
And by the way, it's important to say, I don't mean to sound cynical here. It's not like everything you see with a human is gonna be real either, because if you're like me, what you're getting into your feeds all the time,
Yes.
and I guess they figured out how old I am, what I'm getting into my feed all the time is things with, you know, women who are perhaps a little younger than I am, and showing how wonderfully this product works to get rid of wrinkles in particularly hard places to get rid of them. And they're saying things like, oh my God, this can't be real. I can't believe how it's working. Of course, it doesn't work.
Right.
And,
And of
you
course,
know,
it's a script.
of course it is. Of course it is. And that is as old as time. That's how advertising works. Our job is to be discerning, but to also be curious. Like, why is that appealing to me? Why is it if I'm, someone who sits on a phone at midnight, right? Why is that when all those ads come in? And why is that something that's going to feel like, well, you know what? I do need the right bag to carry my stuff, and I really do need the right thing for my face and my wrinkles. And by the way, while we're at it, I really do need the perfect sweater that I should have in 10 colors. Why does that come in at midnight? Well, because that's marketing, right?
Yeah,
But
that
the
is
bigger
marketing.
question is, can I be okay in my own skin, in my own thoughts, in my own body, in my own being for more than 5 minutes at a time without having to change it and be what the world thinks I should be?
Absolutely. And that's a practice, right? That's literally the practice of body peace is how do you stay in that? And part of that is being able to go, wait, I'm being seduced by the idea of younger, right? Younger. Why do I need to be younger? I don't want to be younger. I want to be more me,
Oh, no, I
right?
want to be younger. I should be very clear about that. I would like to
You
be
want to be younger. So tell me, so
no, what
let's
what
let's
that really
talk about
means is that I just wanna live longer. That's all it means.
okay, so then that's interesting,
Right,
right? So for
right,
you, being younger means longevity.
right.
So
Which,
for
by the way,
someone
is not
else,
automatic either.
no, for
Yes.
sure.
Today, as we're recording this, there is, a 26-year-old who was a very, very interesting influencer who took us on her journey on TikTok, for her cancer treatment, and she died today. So
Mm,
age doesn't, guarantee
right.
anything, but I think that's sort of the fear about aging, is not just to become irrelevant, but also to die or to become, infirm in some way.
Yeah. But then you're talking also about the business of longevity, right? It's a huge business, right? Biohacking and let's like supercharge. And there's this constant pressure that we're supposed to be more in some way, whether it's, younger or more or stronger and stronger helps. It does help, but there's a more of everything.
Yes.
And can we be in the enoughness?
So well, it's interesting you say that. One of the things that a lot of my clients do, and I'm sure it's true for you as well, is an exercise where they actually ask themselves, "Am I enough?"
Mhm.
And it has so much meaning. Am I enough? Fill in the blank. In what
Yeah.
ways? Am I enough in what I contribute to the world? Am I enough in my relationships? Am I enough just as I am in this moment? I can't be any different than who I am in this moment. And can I appreciate exactly who I am and everything that has brought me to this moment to be exactly who I am? Am I allowed to aspire? Sure. Can I have goals? Sure. Do I want to keep growing and building and creating? Sure. But can I be enough in this moment? And with that comes appreciation and gratitude. It's very hard to come by sometimes.
Yeah. But that sense of there is enough sufficiency is so powerful. And I do resonate with that theme so much so that in the
Yes.
fall, I'm leading a retreat called the Enough Retreat, right? Because
Okay.
it's such a deep issue
Yes.
for us in terms of practicing that. And so to watch when we leap out of it when we're watching, whether it's a real person influencer who is selling something, whether it's an AI influencer, is going, wait, it's feeding, it's triggering, it's activating my not enoughness. And how do we come back to ourselves with
Yeah.
that? How do we come back to wait? How do we
Well,
create an internal boundary? That's the expectation. That's the cultural ideal.
mhm.
And I'm going to come back to myself.
Here's the one context in which I'm comfortable using the word diet. I think it's important for us to take ourselves off of the social media diets that we're on for some period of time. I think if anybody can simply step away from social media for just 3 days,
Hmm.
it's eye-opening
Yeah.
because I think we have forgotten what life is like when we're not on social media. So I think if we could step back from that and just take a breath and be with our own thoughts and be with our own experiences and not have that constant dopamine hit. Oh, and then by the way, not only getting the dopamine hit, but having to keep up with everything that we're seeing and wanting to be that and do that in order to be relevant. I think we need a diet from it, I must say.
I think that media diets are so important, and I am very bad at it. But what I do is ask myself the question when I'm hooked in a video, do I really care? Do I care about the celebrity? I don't even know them. Do I
Right.
care about what so and so is saying about, I don't know, about the 5 million grams of protein that's being sold to us every single second in this particular era? No, I don't actually care. What do I care about? It just helps create a little bit of that internal boundary. I'm investing. Do I want to?
And how to get information in a different way. You know,
Mm.
whatever it is you think you're getting when you're going through your feed all day long or many times per day, pick up a book. Let your mind create. I mean, I both of us are too young for this, but remember, I know that my parents used to talk a lot about what it was like when there was no TV yet and there was only radio.
Mhm.
So, it wasn't just listening. I mean, imagine that they sat in front of the radio as if they were watching it
Mhm.
because of all of the images that were being projected in their mind's eyes.
Mhm.
And it was such a creative experience. They were listening, but their minds were creating images and stories. We get to do that still when we read. We get to do that still if we listen to a story, let's say on a podcast. But to just be scrolling all day long, I really think cobwebs form. I'm convinced that we're gonna do autopsies and find cobwebs in our brains.
But Jenny, what you're talking about is creativity, right? You're talking about how do we access creativity? And really, what you're also getting at is how creativity is the antidote to being sucked into the AI experience, as though that's the right thing, right? There's something very binary.
Yes, and creativity makes you feel relevant. It's not
Mm.
about your color of your hair or the number of wrinkles that may or may not be in your skin. It's not about truly what is your body size, what is your clothing size, do I look like I'm dressing like such and such an age person? I used to dress none of it is about that.
Yeah.
It's about how do I continue to create relationships, create the things that I like to create, whatever that is. Is it art? Is it words? Is it just relationships? I think creativity is the core and the key to feeling better in your own space, your own body, your own mind, your own soul, and not worrying about what the rest of the world is doing.
So let's talk about that. Let's say somebody's listening and they're like, "Yeah, I'm really stuck on in the AI world. I'm scrolling too much. I'm in it. And yep, creativity sounds like a good idea. But how do I open the door with that? How do I start that?" And let's brainstorm that together because one of the things that I would first say is give yourself space to be bored first. is literally that media diet and be like, ugh, I'm bored. Fantastic. Great. Let's
Well, because
sit.
bored means you're in your own thoughts.
Yes.
See where they take you.
Yeah.
The same way that you would watch a screen, watch your mind's eye. See
Mhm.
where it takes you. The other thing that I think is a great opener is to journal. Journaling doesn't have to be like a diary, and it certainly doesn't have to be grammatically correct, and it certainly doesn't have to even be legible if you're doing it manually. To me, it's just sort of like you're recording your brain. You're just dumping it onto the page, whatever's
Mhm.
there, and then look through it later and see, what jewels you find, because there's a lot there. Past, present, future. I mean, I
Yes.
think it's an extraordinary tool.
There's one journaling exercise that I've always remembered that I love, which is just go stream of consciousness, read back, and take a highlighter or just circle one phrase that goes, oh, wow, that came out of me. Take that one phrase, put it at the top of the paragraph, and then write from that one phrase. Then
That's
go
brilliant.
again. What, when I read back and I go, oh, even one word,
Mhm.
and then again, what does that word evoke? And it's a nice way to self-generate
Yes.
what's bubbling, make space for what's bubbling inside. And if you say, no, no, I'm not a journaler, great. Pick up a sketch pad and just doodle. Let yourself doodle. And then you could do the same thing. Wow, I really love that shape. Let me go to the next page. Let me start with that shape.
Doodling is brilliant, by the way, because it's also, you're expelling energy when you do that. Like, see, what people think of as boredom is actually almost like nervous energy. And
Hmm.
when you're doodling, it can be very visceral and very expressive. And I'm sure there are those listening. Oh no, have you met me? I can't draw a straight line. Doesn't matter.
That's me. Hmm.
That's me too. But
Hmm.
doodling has no rules.
Right.
And it's really, and I add, doodle with your non-dominant hand. That's fun,
Yeah.
because then you start to tap into the creativity of when you were a child.
And also, you can't get it right when you're doing non-dominant. Like, there's no even pretense that that's going to show up looking like anything you want it to show up because it's your non-dominant hand. There's a sense of freedom in that. And I think what we're talking about, just to zoom back out, is there is a way out of the tightness, out of the hustle, out of the pressure that AI is putting on us around that there's this right way and there's the wrong way. And that the antidote is our own creativity. And without a lot of, classes or, groups, you can tap into your own creativity.
And I think as a final point that I would want to make too, community, community,
Mm.
community, community. In all of the studies of health span, let alone, longevity, the thing that most people participate in who live very long and healthy lives is community. When you're in community, and I don't mean just an online community, I mean community that's made up of people that have similar interests, people that you can count on, people that may be geographically close, not geographically close. It doesn't matter. When you feel part of community, you are less likely to spend your time, bending your neck over a phone. I just think that that's, one of the antidotes.
I think that's so true, and it came home to me again, it hit home very hard, and it was a little humbling, is I was starting a new body peace group, and the first group, I had all this, I thought I was so clever, all this good curriculum, and, we had this good exploration, and at the end of the group, as I always do, I said, "So what are you taking away here?" And every single person said, "I'm not alone."
Oh,
And there it is,
and
right?
there it is.
That was the power. It didn't matter how clever I thought I was or how deep these issues were. Nope. The impact, I
I'm
am
not
not
alone.
alone. And that in and of
That's
itself
as
is
primitive as
healing.
it gets, right?
Yep. We
That
need
is
that.
beautiful. Yeah.
And what
So, you
happens?
mentioned your retreat. Make
Mhm.
sure that you put that on our Body Peace
Mhm.
website, because there's a way to build community also.
Yes. Yeah. Is to
Really,
come
really
on retreat.
important.
It's a beautiful thing. But it's also interesting, right, with these women who said, "I'm not alone." And we go back to the AI thing. The AI makes us feel more alone, right? Because it's so unreal and it's so unreachable.
It's interesting what you're saying, though. It makes you feel alone when you step back from it,
Yeah.
but when you're in it,
Sucked in.
the idea is to belong. The
Yeah.
idea is to be accepted, to be kind of like everyone else. I
Mhm.
mean, it takes stepping back from it to see that that's not what you get from it. What you get from it is just a very fried brain, which is my fear for our future generations, but I'm
And
hoping
our
all of them
sleep.
get smarter.
Yeah.
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 Great conversation, my friend.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.